You had everything. Hey.
Every single thing.
I'm sorry, this PC's troubling me today. Hey, Coach.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, boss?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Nice beard, man.
Oh, cheers, man. I
Nice.
had to black it out.
You got a barber coming in your house, or?
Hey, keep it tight here, and then on my own.
That's it.
You need personal barbers. Still.
I don't even have an outline right now. It's crazy.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah.
I don't even have an outline. What's up, guys? This is OPSM Podcast. We have Jesse Falango, OPSM rep, also part of the family. I've known Jesse for a long time. He was a great defensive midfielder, still a great defensive midfielder. And on the left hand on the screen, we have Mike Nsien'S, coach of FC Tulsa in the USL Championship. So thank you, Mike, for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Coach,
having you. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start off, Mike. So how's everything going with quarantine, with the team? How are things going with that sense?
Yeah, like I was kind of mentioned to you before the call, sometimes it seems like somehow it's even busier. You know, the process of waking up and getting on the field and having that routine, sometimes when the routine changes, it gets uncomfortable. So we're still trying to stay busy, trying to stay efficient and make contact and see each other at least 4 or 5 times a week. Through attacking principles, defensive principles, tactical work, and then fitness work.
Are the players doing, I guess, fitness regimes like via Zoom as well, like they're doing in Europe, or is it all person?
Yeah, no. So 2 days a week we do it together. So 2 days a week, our fitness trainer comes on. We see all the players in their houses or apartments, and we go through a routine twice a week. Another 2 days a week, they have fitness tests and they have to send in their scores, and then they still have to weigh in and weigh out every day. So they're conscious about what they're putting in their bodies, and then we do tactical work a couple of days a week also.
Jeez. So what would you say right now is the most challenging thing right now with the players and connecting with them and the team?
Yeah, I mean, in my own head, you know, I just wonder where they're at in their headspace in terms of their motivation. And you know, do they feel like they still have goals and objectives for this year? It's tough to stay motivated when you don't know when you're going to play. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you know, we're bringing on a psych person, a sports psych person, to kind of go through that process with him. But just speaking to the core group of leaders in the team, I've asked them, and they said, you know, it's like right before preseason, they're all hungry and ready to get on the field. So they're actually in a good space. So I'm happy to hear that. But I think it's still important that they have an outlet in terms of being able to speak to someone. It's not easy, even the coaching. You know, we feel like where we at, we have goals and things too. So it's important that we try to stay aligned with our objectives and goals.
Yeah. Do you think the extra preparation is helping you in any sense as a coach?
Yeah. You know, you get busy when the season starts. You focus, you narrow in your focus on who we're playing, who we're up against. How do I manage my team? Like we've had this long period of time to step back and naturally just say, okay, this is the way we want to play. Here are our principles. Let's sit down. Let's go over this again. Let's rehearse this again. We went through an interesting exercise today that we've been presenting for 5 weeks to coaches. So we had the players analyze opponent that we play during the season, and then the players did a presentation for us. So they need to know our principles and how we would attack a team. So 2 groups did attacking, 2 groups did defending. So just trying to switch it up, break the monotony.
If I can ask, how did that go?
Honestly, me and the coaches were like, how much time are they going to spend on this? Yeah. And hey, it seemed to be a little competitive because they put together a really good presentation. So even afterwards, we were like, man, coaches, we got to step up, man. These guys, they're not bad. A couple people might be after my job, man.
There you go. You got your captains lined up, I guess, then.
Yeah. No, that was part of the exercise. Let's mix it up in terms of like a personality, position, who emerges as leaders. And, you know, we want them to collaborate, deal with each other, but ultimately You know, how did they react to each other? What did they take from the exercise? And you know, I asked them afterwards, how many of you guys looked at a game this way before? And most of them were like, you know, I usually watch it as a fan, or how's it going to affect me individually?
Yeah.
So when they had to think from a team perspective, they said it was a new experience. So welcome to my world.
Yeah. So basically, what we wanted to do was we kind of wanted to take you through your, I guess, your playing career and your history on how you got into FC Tulsa. So that transition from you being a player to becoming a manager. So I guess the first question was, where did it all begin? Where did it all start for you as a player?
Yeah, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm born and raised in Tulsa.
Okay.
Obviously, I have a Nigerian father. I think that's where it started, my love for the game and passion for the game. My dad was a pioneer in terms of my city. He started a club, a youth club that I played for throughout my history growing up. So he had a youth club, and then I guess I went on to play at a pretty good level in youth, and you know, call-ups with the national team, U.S. and Nigeria, and then went to college to play. After that, you know, it was. I mean, I've only wanted to play and coach. I never really dreamt of doing anything else. You know, so what was next? I was like, I got to play. I got to keep going, and ended up with LA, the Galaxy, and then moved on to Portland, and then you know, sometimes the game tells you it's time for you to move on. You know,
Yeah.
well, so I made a decision. Well, my family made a decision. I got married, and I think at that time in the U.S. there weren't so many teams like there is now. You know,
Yeah.
so the opportunities were a bit slim, and I thought it was a good time for me to transition into a coach. So I spent a couple of years playing, and then what's next? I go back to my hometown and pick up in the youth market.
So, Coach, going from, if I can cut you off, sorry,
Yeah.
going from youth football in Tulsa to Dayton, what was that like? And what were the challenges, the experiences, and things that developed you to become I guess, a professional down the line?
Yeah, I think right away. I mean, I got offers from Tulsa and some other places. I think even Connecticut, who ended up winning a national championship my freshman year. But I decided, hey, I wanted to go away from home, and I wanted a challenge. I didn't want an already made. I wanted a kind of up and coming college. So the coach Jim Launder at that time had just won a national championship with Wisconsin, and he moved to Dayton, and he convinced me that it'd be a good opportunity for me. He wanted to change kind of what they were doing in terms of their program and build a really competitive college team. So went to Dayton. It was everything I wanted in terms of a college experience. The soccer side of it, there were ups and downs and challenges like anywhere. But I think the toughest part, you know, my family, you know, they far from home. They never. I think one time they got to see me play
Yeah.
in college, which it's okay, but you just kind of isolated and you're in your own bubble. And you know, many reasons why I played as a kid is to impress my father and you know mother and things like that. Then all of a sudden it's your own, and you have to be driven on your own. It's not someone else's dream. It's your dream. It's up to you. So I think that's the biggest part is the sooner you realize it's your own, and you kind of approach it that way, you'll be better off. So I wish maybe I would have had that advice earlier, but it wasn't too late. It wasn't too late in terms of picking it up in college.
So it definitely molded you a bit.
Yeah, a lot of growing up. You know, it's a lot of growing up. I think part of going away to college or professionally, either way, it's like you figure out right away what you're about, and you have to make some sacrifices, of course, and then you find out what you want, what you're willing to do for it. You know, so that was for sure my experience, my first year in college.
So what was the transition like when you went from college to the MLS? So how did that happen? How did that come along? Were you drafted, or was it?
No, I wasn't drafted. So I did have some good years in college. My junior, senior year, started to ascend again, but I wasn't drafted. But I got called up to the U23 for Nigeria for the 2004 Olympics in Greece. So which was definitely a life-changing moment. I went there, prepared to play matches, and I got malaria.
Oh,
Wow.
My first time getting in it.
Classic.
That's serious right there.
I've had it a
Yeah.
few times, so I know it's.
No
I had a
joke.
bad one. I had a bad cerebral, like I couldn't sit up. I mean, I was really down.
Wow.
So I actually had to spend extended time there just to be able to fly home. I mean, just to get healthy enough to fly home. So that was a tough process, but I wasn't finished yet. I went to Dubai, and I was on trial with a few clubs there, and
Yeah.
dealt with some some interesting agents and things like that led me down some different paths. But ultimately, I had a contact. Someone reached me that they're looking for a left back in Los Angeles, and I went on a whim. I said I'm moving there, and I'm going to make it happen. So I went there and I trialed for a long period of time, and then ultimately they signed me. I made mostly just reserve appearances for them, but definitely a learning experience. So that's part of my coaching. Went from a team that was really struggling, had all the talent
Yeah.
in the world, but looked like we weren't going to make playoffs. But just due to leadership within the team, we put it together, made a run, and won an MLS Cup and an Open Cup, which, I mean, from the beginning of the season and toward the middle, like we weren't on anyone's radar. But definitely something I can, I apply to coaching in life, that, you can turn things around when they're not looking so good.
So, Coach, at the Galaxy team, there were some characters. If you remember, was anybody that stood out to you? Kobe Jones, I believe, was on the squad.
Yeah.
Was there anybody that really stood out to you, or was it just a group of guys that you learned from?
No, there's some characters, man. There's some characters. There's some characters. Kobe, he's a leader. Very down to earth, very humble person. I would say a funny story, like after trialing for a long period, I come into the locker room after I've been signed, and everyone's kind of cheering and then give me high fives, whatever. And then Landon Donovan walks in, and he's like, what are you guys cheering about? And they're like, oh, Nsien'S got signed. And he's like, so what? That's a contract. Everybody here is signed. That's not it's not special. But then he came and talked and said, hey, what's your address? I want to pick you up for dinner, which is, it's not very Landon-like, to be honest. For whatever reason, he thought it'd be all right for me to go to dinner with him. And you talk about a superstar. We go out to a restaurant and he gets recognized by the waiter, and then the waiter tells a few people, and then it's just like everyone's rushing, and he's like, "Hey, we got to go somewhere else." And I'm like, "Man, this guy lives. This is a different way of life. He's a real superstar." And I realized that by hanging out with him.
And how was that? Like, did you feel like? Were you like your personal aspect? Was it easy to gel with the boys that were like big time superstars, or what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you come in that situation, you think a little bit, okay, where do I fit in? How do I approach this? I mean, Landon is, I was a defender, and matched up with Landon sometimes. I'm like, do I want to make a point, kick this guy?
Yeah.
And, you do that to some players, and it's like, okay, you're blacklisted. You can't hurt him. The season rides on his back, So you try to figure out like kind of where you belong. I wouldn't say intimidated. We did have a steady group of players. Todd Donovan, he's a GM now at Sacramento. He pretty much played over me. Some very good people that'll have longevity in soccer in America. It was Galaxy is a franchise of the United States, and
of course,
you can tell why. I do like to say that I was a big reason that Beckham came in, because they sacked me when he came in, so they had to get rid of my money for
open the salary cap.
Trivia somewhere.
Probably to move one of his Gucci bags.
That's trivia somewhere, man. So, Coach, Frank Yallop was the manager there. Can you give us a little bit of tip about his style?
No, I played under Steve Sampson.
Okay.
Yes, Yallop is the one that took it a different direction. So I was
Okay.
out when Yallop came
Ah,
in. Yeah,
the Canadians, eh?
yeah. Those Canadians
Yeah.
can't trust them.
Okay, okay. So from there, you went on to the USL.
Yeah,
You went to play in Portland. What was that like, going
yeah,
from California to Oregon?
yeah. Portland's an amazing city.
Hmm.
Even at the USL level until today, I mean, they have an amazing fan base. I think maybe the best fan base that there is in U.S. soccer. That's one of the things. I mean, I still get messages from people from my time there, and there. I mean, they've continued to climb and elevate and push themselves. They won a cup in MLS, and people still remember the history of the USL time. They don't forget their players that they believe in, that worked hard for them. So it was a great moment for me. I was in that transition of. I was probably one of those players that on the USL side, like a pretty elite player, but on the MLS side, a
Yeah.
fringe player.
Mm-hmm.
So that transition from going from MLS to USL, and then after being there, they started to mention about going back to MLS, and okay, we're going to make some changes on the payroll, and kind of cut things. I was probably on the high end on the USL side, and at that time, I'm not taking a pay cut. I don't,
Yeah.
uh, to do that. So I decided to move on and to some other areas or some other places. But great city, great fan support, and actually one of my teammates there, Gavin, is the GM now. So it's good to see guys doing well from that.
Did you ever get to rep the chainsaw?
No, man. I do consider myself an attacking left back, but I didn't get a goal for them. Yeah.
That's funny.
So then after that transition from Portland, where did you end up going from there?
Oh my gosh, man, the journeyman of a player. So I had a pretty severe
How old were you,
MCL.
sorry, at that time?
26.
Okay, 26. Okay.
Yeah, I at the end of this, I had a pretty significant MCL injury that took me out. I came back toward the end of the season. wasn't perfect, but just tried to rehab it in the off season, make a decision where I wanted to be, and actually I went to Whitecaps.
Okay.
So I went to Whitecaps. I was there in preseason, re-injured my knee.
Jeez.
Yeah. So then I said, well, let me go home for a bit. This is in preseason, so I felt pretty close. I think it was maybe Bob Lilly was the coach then. I'm not
I
sure.
believe. Okay.
He might have been there. But let me go home and heal. So I went home for a bit. Got a call from Colin Clark that just took a club in Virginia Beach at that time.
Yeah.
Colin Clark was the FC Dallas coach. Um, so I went to Virginia Beach. Great preseason, felt good. Signed with the club, and then they fold. And before we kicked off, they folded before we kicked off. And then
Jeez.
yeah, we saw a group of guys walking up during preseason. It was like, this doesn't look good, man. What's going on? These guys in suits. And so Colin broke the news to us. Colin took a job in Puerto Rico, and I with the Islanders, and I had just got married, and I just felt like that wasn't going to work. Colin referred me to FC Dallas.
Yeah.
So actually, I went from there to FC Dallas, and the FC Dallas kind of, it was normal. I was on trial there, things going well, playing games in preseason for them. And I felt like they were just kind of dragging me a little bit, just wanting to see what else they could get probably.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to come on a 3-month stay. They were going to put me in an apartment. And I said that wouldn't work. I just got married. So they were actually flying me up from, I would fly up from Wednesday through the weekend, training and playing in reserve matches. And I said, hey, let's commit now or move on. And they just weren't ready. And I was, at that point, I was already at home and kind of getting my roots back into coaching. So I said, hey, it might be a good time to move forward.
So that was the deciding factor of when you wanted to transition to being a coach.
Yeah. It's hard. It's like probably 3 or 4 years later, I was still struggling with that, still seeing colleagues, guys that, I feel like, man, I can still play. He's playing, whatever. You always feel like that. But, you know, it was something different in store for me. I think maybe God said, you got an MLS ring and you didn't get on the pitch, man. You go take it easy. Take it easy, man. Go coach something. So maybe my path in life was to be a coach more.
Now, Coach, before we transition to, I guess, some of the questions we have about your coaching career, playing in Nigeria, what was that like? We know that playing football in different, especially around the world, is very different. Was there anything quirky about, you know, being in Nigeria? Did you ever have to experience the juju men? Something funny that you could tell us?
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. For sure. I mean, I think you find out pretty quickly, you know, you try to figure out who you can trust and who not to put yourself around right away. Guys come to you and, hey, come with us, hang out with us, don't hang out with that group. And then for a moment, you're suspect of everyone.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, then you kind of start to find some guys you think that are genuine, that you feel like you can trust. But yeah, there's always those stories. No, this guy, no, you can't eat around this guy. You can't sleep around this guy. You know, everyone's got some agenda.
Huh? Do you believe in the witchcraft?
Huh?
Do you believe in the witchcraft?
Do I believe in it? Well, I believe in God, so I think there's an opposite. So yeah, I think there's some element to that. I think if you believe that it's very powerful, then mentally, it can affect you for sure. So, but yeah, my beliefs are in God. So I think that's more importantly is what I believe in. That's more powerful. So I never was really that concerned. Actually, where my family is from, Akwa Ibom in the southeast, it's very, very prevalent that those religions, more ancestral type religions are very prevalent there. So I've always been around it. I've heard about it, but
I was born on the continent, and Gordon's also Ghanaian, so we're very much used to our parents telling us stay away from the juju.
No, actually, when I was there, I had hair I had long dreadlocks, man. So they would always be like, "Don't let people touch your locks."
Oh my!
And actually, I wanted to cut my hair, and they said no, off completely at that time. It was so hot, man. I had all that hair.
The hair gives it away, huh? That you're a player.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, I went to a place in Lagos, and I went to a barbershop, and I want a haircut, and the guy was like, "No, I won't cut this, man.
No way.
I'll have to sacrifice a cow, man."
Oh man!
Right away, huh?
Yeah, no chance. I'm touching your hair, man. So, interesting, always interesting.
So now that we're coming back, so we're going into the coaching stuff now. So now we're in the management side. What was your first role, really jumping into the management side of the game?
In youth or
in youth? I guess youth leading in.
Yeah. Well, I went back to my family's hometown club, Tulsa Thunder. It's not around anymore. But at that time, I just wanted to get my feet wet, start coaching. Good teams, bad teams, I didn't care. I just wanted to get as many experiences as possible. I remember a lot of coaches saying, "I only want to take this team or that," and I was like, I just want to jump in and be humble and learn everything I can about the game. And I was pretty aggressive in terms of all the licensing and stuff like that. I just wanted to stay ahead of all that. I mean, I coached 3 and 4 teams at a time. So I really embedded myself in coaching. And after a few years, my mentor, a guy I respect a lot in terms of coaching, he was a director, and I kind of came under his wing, and then he was kind of on his way out. And then, I got moved into that director of coaching type position. And from there, started to coach more elite teams and produce players and start to get some results. And I think that's kind of where it kicked off everything for me in terms of being able to support my family full time with coaching.
Besides, I guess, your passion for football and your knowledge of football, is there anything else you'd say that's helped you progress in the coaching ranks to where you are today?
I mean, I probably go back to family, environment. I think a lot of stories, whether players or coaches, think a lot of people come from humble backgrounds like myself. I think, my dad was an immigrant here, from Nigeria on his own when he was 18, 19 years old to be a pilot in the U.S. And my mother, she was a nurse. Well, she is a nurse. She actually didn't have a degree the day that I moved to Dayton. The morning that I was leaving to go to college, she didn't have a degree, and she actually told me that she can't tell me to go to school and pursue a degree unless she did it herself. So she surprised me that she enrolled in college also
Awesome.
to be a nurse, and she actually told me that she would finish before me, and she did. She beat me.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So yeah, just work ethic. I mean, I think that's what it is in terms of setting goals, work ethic. My family background is very big on there's no excuses. I mean, there are excuses, but none of them are worth sacrificing your one shot at opportunities for. So, um, coming from a humble background, I never let that hold me back, and I always try to push forward.
Wonderful.
Awesome. So I know, so I guess transitioning now when you came into the USL Championship, at the time, I believe when you came, Tulsa, it was meant, the team was called Tulsa Roughnecks,
Yeah.
right? And so during that time, I know the team was, going through, they weren't doing so great during the season. So I believe you came in as an interim coach, correct?
I was an assistant before that. So I was working as assistant for a year and a half.
Okay.
And the team wasn't doing so well. And then when the coach was let go, I became the interim coach. And then I moved forward from there. After that, they announced me as the full-time coach, and that's where I'm at to this point.
So when you were when you became the interim coach, I mean the full-time coach for for Tulsa Roughnecks, at that point, did you feel like you were ready at that moment, or what was going through your head when like the team not doing so great? What's going through your head at that point?
Yeah, I would say as an assistant, or most people from not that I was on the outside looking in, but you kind of observe some of the issues, and everyone thinks that I can make a change right away, and I felt like that. I felt that I had been around at least those players enough to see kind of the pitfalls or the obstacles that we were having. So I felt like I could have an immediate impact in terms of being a head coach time. I felt like it was the time. You never know when the opportunity is going to come. So in my home city, I felt like it was the best time, if any, that I was going to get my opportunity. So I wanted to make the most of it.
For any assistant coach right now in the USL or somewhere working, do you have any advice for them, I guess, in preparation for a head coaching job?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a few things. One, don't be afraid to ask questions. Some assistants are maybe they get caught up in the roles and responsibilities given to them by the coach when they should do more or be proactive. If you want to be a lifelong assistant, there's some important parts of that too. But if you want to be a head coach, you can't limit your opportunity based on the roles and the tasks that the head coach gives you. So always offer. I know that's what I did. Whether the coach wanted to take my match analysis or my thoughts and use them, he could have not, but I thought that was always good practice for me. Hey, coach, this is what I'm seeing. Here's a presentation. If you want to look at it, if not, no problem. Just to keep offering services and tasks and try to do more, try to get more and more responsibility. It's not an easy job. So sometimes you might think you're doing everything right and the opportunities still aren't coming. Just to continue to prepare yourself. It's just like being a player, there's how many players out there are working hard and they don't know where that opportunity is going to come from. That's where guys like Godwin come in to make things happen.
There you go.
But it's not easy just to be seen, hey, I could win 1,000 championships at the youth level. It doesn't mean anyone's going to hire me as a professional, So it's just finding ways to continue your path and don't get held back. Just keep, whether it's a license. I always thought, man, what can I do this year to prepare me? for the following year. If that's a license, if that's going to meet someone or go observe a foreign country, go observe people working in the business that you want to be in, see what other people are doing, and by there's no means that I mean that I have the money to, but I made sacrifices to make those things happen. Uh, Pay for my license or to travel, to watch something. Just invest in yourself.
Perfect.
You know, it was great to see in your second year at Tulsa Roughnecks. You know, that's when we met. When through my brother, he was able to sign with you guys, and we also were able to bring a couple other players. So seeing you guys winning, you know, the first bit, you know, was kind of a great boost because you know this was your technically your first full season going into it. So how was that feeling? You know, being on top of the table, winning. What was the biggest thing that you felt like was able to get you guys always on top of the table like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's important is in coaching, you learn, and right from that, you'll tell me how I dealt with adversity, because that's, that's the tough part. But just dealing with the highs and lows. I mean, in my first month as a professional coach, I was coach of the month, and my team was top of the table. That doesn't mean I was doing everything right.
Yeah.
Like sometimes those are false positives, and not that I was doing everything bad either. I think it's important when things are good, keep yourself grounded, and when things are bad, know that it's going to get better and to keep working hard. But yeah, we had some really good moments early in the season. Some good players, some good characters, Jeff included, guys with good leadership. And then is to maintain that. That's a new lesson. So for my own coaching, for my own toolbox in coaching, I've learned what it's like to be at the top, and I've learned what it's like to suffer and be toward the bottom. So uh, not in that moment. In that moment, I wasn't sleeping, but at this point, I think I look back at it already and say, man, what valuable lessons that I have already.
Being in the USL, you know the league really well, and also having spent time in MLS a bit, you have a good understanding. What are the differences you'd say? Obviously, finances, obviously the size of the club, but in terms of playing, just playing ability, what are the differences you think between the MLS and the USL one? And how big is that gap, would you say?
Yeah, well, I think the gap in terms of like overall players is minimal. I mean, there's players in the USL that could be role players in MLS, and then vice versa. I think the difference is those key players that make the separation, that make the difference. There's a few in USL also, but you can game plan for some players, and there are some players in MLS that are very difficult to game plan around and to compete against. So I would say overall it's pretty competitive, USL MLS, in terms of level, but when you get to that top third and the top few percentages of players, that elite professional player is the difference. That's what makes the difference.
So I know we're seeing less. Like I'm not when looking into it, we're seeing maybe less and less players making that jump to the MLS. Like during the years, why do you think that is, or what's the biggest issue in that sense? Because I know a lot of these USL players that are American want to make that jump to playing in the MLS.
Yeah, I think in terms of maybe the age of what some of the successful players in the USL are, some of them are at the 26 plus age,
Yeah.
that are maybe a risk for a coach in terms of can he adapt to this level. But I think what we'll see, and there's been a few that moved up this last year, but I think what we'll probably see is those guys that are 21 or so that are 4-year professionals at the USL level. They'll start to get opportunities. MLS clubs have their own USL academies, and some of those players obviously go in. And then you're going to start to see, I think, USL clubs that are selling players to the MLS. That's starting to happen now also. So there's an opportunity, I think, maybe in terms of age. USL also maybe start bringing in more Central, South Americans, African players. And people want to see if they can adapt to the United States and then make the jump. So it might be, I think it's going to be a good testing ground for MLS. There's a lot of eyes from MLS on USL. I
Yeah.
think you start to see the benefits here in the next couple years.
So you say recruiting would be the big thing for USL to get itself closer to MLS one.
Yeah, well, it depends on their goals. I mean, if their goals are to win USL championships, recruiting, and you probably go a little bit more mature. But if there's USL clubs that want to make money, not by selling tickets but by selling players, then maybe they're looking at younger players from different countries to promote them to the MLS markets and give them exposure to markets maybe they weren't getting where they're from.
So for players that are watching this, obviously you being the head coach at FC Tulsa, what are the things that you look for in the recruiting sense of, if I'm watching this, how can I get to be a part of the Tulsa Roughnecks? What are the things that you look for in the qualities of a striker, midfielder? What's the biggest things that you look for in your recruiting process?
Yeah, I would say whatever your skill set is, that you're consistent with it. I mean, having good games hardly cut it. If I'm signing a player, I've probably watched him play 10, 12 times by video, and you start to see the characteristics and the trends, and then you look for everything that they're doing off the ball. Everyone will tell you that, okay, you touch the ball for 2 minutes, 3 max. What do you do the other 87 minutes of the game? Are you active? Do you provoke the other team with good movement? Are you available to teammates? Are you comfortable in tight positions? If I'm a striker, if I'm looking for a striker, I like a two-way striker. Can you come underneath in the half space and connect with your teammates? Do you have the ability to run in behind? From the wing, I like to try to keep ball possession, but I think teams will press you if you just try to play. So can you play and can you be dynamic and run in behind from the wing? Because, in the first 10 minutes of games, all this enthusiasm, and sometimes you have to put the ball in the channels and push the other team off of you, So what kind of, do you have multiple, are you surgical? Do you have one thing or do you have a couple things that you're good at? And if you only have one, you have to be a surgeon. You have to be extremely good at that one thing, or you need your overall game and cleanliness on the ball and your movement have to be sharp. I mean, there's so many good players that can pass and run and are athletic. What makes you stand out is being able to do that for 95, 96 minutes, multiple games.
Yeah. Can I ask, what's your work week like? Obviously, regular work week. That's not just COVID, but if in the season, how much time do you spend recruiting, watching players doing? I mean, it's life, I would assume.
Yeah. I think one thing I'll say I'm probably getting better at is delegating. When I first started, I wanted to do everything. And I wasn't allowing my coaches, my assistants to have more responsibility, so I could see the big picture. Now that I feel like they understand what I want in terms of whether it's analysis or training setup or running a training session, now that I'm confident in them, I've kind of put myself back a bit, and I try to be more observational in terms of now I can look at the opponent a bit more and look at the big picture in the season, not just a day or a game. So I'm able to put together a lot more. But I would say typically during the season, I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours maybe.
Jeez, that's actually insane. 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. How's your health?
I told you I used to have hair like you, man. Play in tight space. He had a little burst of pace too. They're both selfless players, but I think Iniesta makes the difference in terms of his mobility. I think the difference was he's a little bit more active.
Yeah, little secret, he's my favorite player.
Okay, all right.
Zidane's Madrid or Pep's Guardiola? I mean, Pep's Barcelona, sorry.
Oof. Man, I'm more Madrid than Barcelona, so I'm gonna say Madrid.
Really?
I'm gonna say Madrid.
Okay.
This is good. I know you've always been a Madrid guy.
Yeah, well, I'm a Chelsea guy first and foremost. But if in La Liga, if it's between Barca and Madrid, I'm a la Madrid for sure.
Always. Alrighty. Most influential American soccer persona or person that you've met in American soccer that's helped you,
That's helped me.
or just influential.
I would say the most influential has been Landon Donovan. From what I've seen, and even till now, his impact in terms of being a player, being a young player and a star, to being an elder statesman and a star and still winning, to now his influence in the USL market. And he's been on TV. I mean, he's kind of covered everything there is in the US in terms of soccer. So,
Orlando's a
that's
real
awesome.
celebrity. This is
Yeah.
true. Nwankwo Kanu or JJ Okocha?
Oof. Well, I'm gonna say Okocha because Kanu played for Arsenal. And I'm not with that. I remember my dad trying to buy me a Kanu jersey. I'm not with that, man.
You're not worried that. You got to stay loyal, which is good.
Yeah.
If I can ask that, Coach, who was your favorite Chelsea player?
Favorite Chelsea player? Well, the player that got me into Chelsea,
yes.
Was Marcel Desailly.
Oh, yeah. Wow, top player.
Yeah, and I wore number 6. I mean, he's the player that attracted me to them.
Gordon, what's his nickname? The Rock?
The Rock, yeah. He's from Ghana, so he's a
exactly. So I mean, France have had all those influential African descendants that and for him, for me, he was one of the best that I've seen.
What is your appreciation of Jose Mourinho's tactics like?
Man, that's okay, because there's 2 Jose Mourinhos, you know. The Jose Mourinho that was at Porto and early in Chelsea, I loved. And then this one that's now, I mean, you can see how the game can manipulate you, you know. Coaches, and that's why people can argue Guardiola, but I mean, there's so much pressure to win, and he did it from the beginning. And then he just became pragmatic by only the outcomes, that I think he left what he loved about it or what he was passionate about. You know, I'll never forget him running the sideline and sliding on his knees. Now, now we look at him and he's like, he looks miserable half the time, you know. But the game can do that to you. But I don't know. I'd like to, man, if I could sit down with one manager, he'd probably be one. If I could ask him personal questions about his transition from then to now and what's caused that. In our perception, he's different. In mine, he's different. But what's led to that change?
Would you say he's your favorite manager?
I would say in the beginning, for sure. For sure. I can relate. I mean, he played probably less than I did, but you know, just someone that drive and hunger led him to a place of and love, I guess, for the game, led him to a place that he probably could never imagine. And then to see how he's dealt with that, it's been hard to watch at times and fun to watch, but it's been entertaining. You know. But I would say my feel for a manager, he's the one I felt the most about in terms of I like.
Alrighty, last question then. Will we have football this year in the USL?
Oof. From the talks that I've been privy to, I think so. It sounds like they're pretty bullish that we could start in July.
Okay.
If we don't start by August, I think it's over.
With crowds, without crowds, what does it seem?
Yeah, I think that's probably where they're hung up on. I think the difference between MLS and USL, in the MLS, you know, the league has rights to the players and control a lot. In the USL, you have different owners, different places, and their perspective on a fan base and how they make their money are affected a lot more. So I think if I'm a USL owner and I know that there's no home fans, then that's going to affect my money, and the margins are a little bit different in the USL. So I'm hoping. I think I'm hopeful at this point. Our state, Oklahoma's opening up a bit. Whether that's good or bad or not, I don't. You know, everyone has their opinion, but it seems like things are are on the upswing.
That's
All
awesome.
right.
Well,
Yeah, thank you, Coach. That was the last one.
some good insight.
That was good.
All right, did
I want to
pass?
take the time.
Oh, you gotta pass.
No, I want to take the time. Thank you, Mike, for being on the OPSM podcast. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and obviously, being an agent, it's all about building relationships with managers and coaches and owners. And you were one of the first people that I built a relationship, and I really enjoyed when we went to Portugal. We went to Portugal for about 1 week or so, and we were able to connect more with people, and it was a good time. So thank you for taking the time to be on this OPSM podcast. I really appreciate it.
No, I really like what you guys are doing. I follow you guys and the young players that you guys are promoting and things like that. And in this sport, it's always good to find people you trust, and everything's built on relationships anyway. So it's the same as mutual. One of the first guys that I've been around a lot of agents, but ones that I trust, and and I would talk to. Without a player being involved, you're one of the few. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, thank you again, and we'll be in touch, obviously, and good luck this season.
All right, appreciate it, man. Best to you guys also.
Yeah, good luck with everything, guys.
All right, thank you.